Hey everyone, it's Jack, and today I'm out at the Ultramarine Linux website. Ultramarine Linux is a distro that I just happened to stumble across and discover today. Never heard of it before today. This looks really super interesting. It's based on Fedora 36, yet you get a lot more choices with it. And like they say on the website, a simplified yet powerful Linux experience for all. So this has got me intrigued because I do like Fedora 36 for the most part. Minus the Gnome-ness about it. However, they offer different desktops here, and I even like the name, Ultramarine. Now, I know Ultramarine refers to a deep shade of blue. However, I can't help being reminded of our nation's finest as well.
Now, I'm not just a Marine, I'm an Ultramarine. Leatherneck on steroids. Simplify.
But then again, if Ultramarine Linux can kick butt the way the Marines can, then we really got something here. So let's explore a little and see what's on the website, and then let's download this and take a look. So here on the webpage, I got a download link directly right here, a little picture preview of it, and then they even have a migration script in case you already have Fedora installed on your machine. You can run this migration script and it'll migrate it over for you instead of having to download the entire ISO. So that's pretty cool too. So why Ultramarine? Ultramarine Linux is a Linux distro based on Fedora Linux. Our goal is to design an experience which satisfies the beginner with simplicity while retaining the features a power user would demand. Here's what we offer. And then they go on to show that it's based on Fedora. As a Fedora remix, Ultramarine provides you with all the advantages of Fedora, but with the freedom of choice and our tweaks to make your experience even better. Now I like that, because that's my biggest beef with Gnome anyways, is they take away your choice. And it's open source, just like any other good Linux distro. We are free and open source. So you can always take a look under the hood and see what's going on behind the curtain. And then, of course, the defaults are sane. And I really like what I'm seeing here. Fedora Linux is great, but it's even better with our included default. From a pre-installed NVIDIA driver to more software repositories like RPM Fusion. We have them all. And I really like the fact that they got RPM Fusion installed by default. That is really cool, because anytime I've ever installed a Fedora distro, that's the first thing I got to do is install RPM Fusion, because the Fedora repos don't have certain softwares like VLC Player, believe it or not. You can't get that without RPM Fusion. And then there's OBS Studio, of course, and other softwares. A lot of multimedia type related softwares are just not available unless you have RPM Fusion. And so you got to go out and install it, and it's a little bit of a process. It's not a huge deal, but it's an extra pain in the butt. So I really like that. Very cool. So I'm going to get right down to it. I'm going to hit this download button. And here on our download page, we have download our flagship edition. And their flagship edition is the one that has all the fanciest work put into it. And it's the Budgie Desktop. That's cool. I'd like to see a Budgie version here based on Fedora. I think that's a great combo. And then other versions, of course, is the Gnome edition, Pantheon, and Cutefish, or Cutiefish. And so the Cutefish is really more recommended for advanced users because it's still pretty much in beta, and you probably kind of run into funky quirks there with it, but it is a really cool desktop if you like playing around and stuff. But it hasn't quite come of age yet, but it's getting there. And then the Pantheon edition, which is the desktop used in Elementary OS, and I believe that's their desktop as well. And so that's kind of intriguing as well. However, the flagship edition it is. So let's see what Budgie's got to offer here. I'm just gonna click on that, and then we'll download it and check it out. I'll be right back when it's finished. Okay, so here we are at the boot up screen. Got it loaded in. So let's see how this looks. This should be booting into the live version here. And I think we'll just skip the disk checking there. Hit escape. Don't need all that. And we'll let this boot in. And here we are. Wow, okay. So looks like we have our try Ultramarine or install the hard drive. And I think I'll just directly go to the install here. And here's our installer. And so this is the same type of installer that runs in the Fedora. I'm just going to go ahead and hit that. And maybe I'm just going to slide up a little bit too so you can see the button down there. And so here we got our presets in here for our system installation. We got red fonts under two of these. So first we want to go to our system install, and I'm going to hit the 65 gig and select the drive. And then I always get confused here because they have the buttons in funky places, but I think it's done there. And Okay, let me just go back. I do this every time. So select, and I think it's selected that time. Yeah, there's a little check mark there. So that's good. And so here it asks me if I want to reclaim space, and yes, I do. What we got to do is click on the delete all button right over here. And so we click that, and then we select reclaim space. And then that will allow us to write over the drive there. So that's a little bit confusing. That's one reason I want to go through this. And then our next step, we just type in our username, and I'll just put in my silly one here, and then add in a password. And I like that it has require a password for this account, so you can actually not have a password if you want to set up a guest user or something. So that's pretty cool. And then I'll pop in my next one there, and type that again. And it looks like they're not matching, so let me just retype that again. There we go. And it's showing fair. That's good enough. So we'll hit done, and now we should be ready to go. Nice. So no more red fonts up there. So we'll hit begin installation, and there we go. So now it looks like everything's gonna be installing here. I'm gonna pause the video. Okay, we finished. So it looks like everything completed okay. That's great to see. I'm just going to go over here and click on finish installation, and then we'll just let it restart. Okay, booting in here, hopefully, if everything went well, and we should be seeing a login screen any second now, and there it is. So let's get logged in here, and it looks like we got a connection established. I'm going to right click and go into our display settings, and that would be under displays here. So I'm going to just change that to 1920 by 1080, hit apply, and that's keepable. That's a keeper. All right, excellent. So wow, here we are. We're in the Ultramarine desktop, and so this could be Fedora at its finest. Nice. So here we have our launcher, our menu, Budgie menu there. So that's looking great. So here's our network settings, and then our sound settings down here, and then our power button menu. Nice. Clock, you can access the calendar there as well. And then our Raven here panel, I think is what they call it. So that's kind of cool. Apps and devices right there. So if you need quick access to your audio settings and so forth, there you go. Speaker settings, and then applets, calendar, and then our notifications tab there. So this is something I really like. I like having access to the Raven there. And these are the settings here in Budgie Desktop settings. You can actually get here just by right-clicking on the desktop. Easy peasy. And so here's some of the desktop settings we got. Actually not related to Raven, but the desktop settings, these are the styles that are available. And so by default it was dark mode, but here we got candy and cappuccino, and don't really see any changes there. Doesn't seem to be a lot of differences in those lighter themes. So nothing that's making me go, wow, unless I'm missing something there. So yeah, maybe it's over here. Yeah, not really seeing anything kind of olive colored there. So I'm not really sure what's changing. Let me open up files. And so that's still in dark mode. That's interesting. So how about if I change now? Yeah, still kind of looking the same. So I might be missing something. Maybe I'll stumble across something here in a little bit, but our file manager over there is Nautilus, I believe, because I think that referred to it as Gnome files, which is typically another name for Nautilus. So changing these, that kind of goes light, but it stays dark in there. So there must be like another theme setting somewhere that maybe I'm missing. And so we'll kind of come back to that. And while I'm fiddling here, I'm going to also slide over at the same time. Wow, fancy. Okay, so let's jump back to Fluent Round Dark. And then here we got our cursor settings. So default is Adwaita, and there's not really any other ones there. And then our icons, I'm going to keep it at dark since I'm in a dark theme. And then maybe if we turn it off. No? Okay, yeah, there must be another theme setting because I turned off the dark theme and it's still dark. So there's definitely another alternate setting here that's overriding this part. So we'll discover that as we go. Built-in theme. Let's change that. Now things change down here on the taskbar. Look at that. So the icon spacing looks a lot better. So I think that's what we need is the built-in theme check. And I really like the spacing a lot better without that toggled on. Those icons are really crunched together, which I don't like. So nice. How about now when we go here? Didn't affect that part, but we're making progress. Yeah, that all still kind of looks the same. So that part's kind of a mystery, but we'll probably stumble across something. Yeah, and even restarting Nautilus, that didn't change anything. So, fascinating. I guess I won't obsess on that. We'll just kind of see if we stumble across something as we go. And if I don't find it, feel free to chime in the comments if you know what's going on, because I'm a newbie to this, and I'm not real familiar with Budgie, although this looks like a really cool desktop. So under desktop settings, here we can turn on our desktop icons. Wow, I can't believe Gnome didn't have that idea when they took away the desktop icons. I mean, it's like, How hard is it to put a toggle button in there to give you the choice? But no, they wanted to take away your choice. Thanks, Budgie, for putting it back in. And I think there's an extension that lets you have desktop icons as well. And then single click policy. So here we can click a desktop icon and it'll open it up in single click. But if you look at Nautilus, you can still double click when you select your folders. So you're not going inside the folder when you click on it one time. So the click policy only refers to the desktop, which I like because I don't mind single clicking there. And then you can make them large or massive, so your icons are like huge.
Or you can make them really tiny.
Or normal. And I like the normal size. I think that's just right. Then here we got our font settings. So if you want to change your fonts, and there's the Raven menu. So here's where we can change settings on the Raven menu, which is that menu that comes in over here on the right. So that's kind of cool. And there's the calendar. I like the calendar right there. That's kind of a nice spot for it. And so if you want to turn that off, then you would just toggle it off and now it's gone. So if you're one of those weird people that are like, no calendar, that's how you can turn it off. So nice. But of course I like having the calendar there, so I wouldn't dump it. And so that's a calendar widget. And then if I slide over a little bit, you can see down at the bottom, it's got some other things there, direct access to the settings and so forth. So if I come down here, then there you can go to your logout and you had your other settings that let you go to where we are now, desktop settings. So cool, I'm liking that. Then we have our window settings here. So if I pop over and click on that, and we have modal dialogues, which I probably wouldn't mess with. Our button layer is on the right. That's these buttons up here on your window pane. But you can also switch those over to the left like a Mac. And now you got them over here. So they make it really easy to pop those over if you're used to having them over there. That is really cool. But now just keep it on the right. And then you can disable your nightlight mode and pause notifications and so forth. Automatic tiling, which is nice. So you can kind of tile your windows a little bit. And then your bottom panels. So here we got all the stuff that corresponds to the settings here, like our launcher. And then, so that's right here. And then you got your icon task list, which is what you see here in the middle. And then system tray, that corresponds to this area down in here. And your icon spacing, I don't really see any difference there. So I'm not quite sure where that relates to or correlate. And then a separator, and then our keyboard layout, that's where you see the little US down there. And then our spacer, we got a spacer in between there. So these are all the different things, kind of cool. Status indicator, user, and clock, and so forth. And then our clock, and that's where you can go change your clock settings. So if you wanted to change your clock settings, this is where you do it. And if you want to show seconds, for example, there's the seconds. I like the second. You can show the date, and there's the date. That's cool. I actually like having the date there. I might keep that too. If you want to do a custom format, you can do that here. And then your custom time zone, of course, if you wanted to customize that, like use GMT or whatever. And then here's where you can add applets to your bottom panel. So there's tons of nice applets in here, which is really cool. So maybe we can pick something out just to stick on the bottom panel. Oh, there's a weather app. That looks cool. Let's go with that. I'm going to add this guy. Then we'll come up here and hit add applet. And now there it is. It popped down there in the little corner there next to the launcher. And so it's kind of hugging right up against it. I might want to put a spacer in there probably. So let's go add applet. And there should be a spacer in this list somewhere. And there it is. So let's grab that, add it, and then by default it put the spacer right over here near the icon task list. So what we want to do is just kind of use our up arrow keys. First we want to select the spacer, but these up arrow keys will let us move it, and then we just bring it right up there. So now it's in between the weather and the Budgie menu. So that gives us a little space. Nice. And then we can increase our size of the space by clicking here. And so we have spacer selected. Now let's select weather, and we can see the settings for weather. So there we got London. And that looks jolly good then for your area. Now, if you want to use, if you're in the US, the way you want to do this is type in, like, for example, if you live in Tampa, Florida, you would put in Tampa, comma, and then spell out the state Florida. Don't use an abbreviation, but spell it right out. And then that should get you there. And you can also add US if you like. So I just clicked on Show Dynamic Panel icon to give us the temperature there. Then I added in Fahrenheit to change it from centigrade to Fahrenheit. So that's kind of cool. And now we got our pop-up there for the forecast. That's really cool. So you scroll here and it goes a few days ahead of time, all the way into Friday it looks like. Nice. And so show forecast. If you don't like showing the forecast, if you uncheck that, then when you click it, it won't pop up anymore. However, I like stuff like that, so I'm going to keep it. And what's that? Desktop. Okay, I guess that's more generalized. That's not really related to the app itself, but cool that it's there. So you can so by clicking on these different items, that's how you can change the settings in these different items. And not every item has settings available, so some of those things that you click on won't have these little toggle switches. However, like this, I just turned off the grouping for the icon list. And grouping is like if you have more than one of the same window, like you have 2 instances of File Manager opened up. So they'll just show one icon, but when you hover over it, it'll show you both instances. If you have it ungrouped, then you'll have the icons separate. And then here you can create a new panel if you want to put another panel up on top and not just have a bottom panel, but something else. So that's kind of cool. Makes it easy peasy to add in a bunch of panels if you're a panel guy or gal. And then our desktop settings, which is where we work. So here's our auto start. Then we have our settings over here, our desktop settings. So here on the bottom, or our panel settings, I mean, here we can move it over to the left if you like. And then up on top, you can have your panel. So you can just kind of stick it anywhere you like, or on your right-hand side if you work a lot towards the right-hand side of the screen. But I like it just right on the good old bottom there. And then here you can set your size for your panel. So if you want it shorter, you can just shrink it down like that. Make it pretty small. Maybe 33, 34 would be pretty decent. However, I kind of like the default. I think that big 50 there looks kind of nice on this one. And then you got your auto hide. And by default, it's at none. And our transparency is at none. And then we have dock mode. So you can pop that and it'll make it more minimal so it doesn't take up less space. Kind of Mac-like, I guess. So that's kind of nice. But look, when you maximize the window, the dock's in the way. Ugh. So to cure that, all you got to do is come over here to auto hide and select automatic. And then it just kind of goes right behind it. And now if you do a real window instead of the setting, like this guy, then it disappears. So when you open up an app full screen, it'll just get right out of your way, which is nice. So that's pretty cool. So when you go to the dock, you can do that. You won't have all that space in between your app. And there you go. That also works with your full bottom panel. If you have it on never, though, you don't get a nasty space. It'll just hug right up against the panel. So it's kind of better in the sense with the panel if you're not using the auto hide, because you won't have that gap between the panel and the applications. And so I'm pretty sure that's files, which is definitely Nautilus, and beautiful icons. I really like the icons. It's really, the default theming is really nice in this. And then here, our menu, we got direct access to our search that comes right up. And so if I pop something in there, there's writer. So filter is real nice. And I just hit the super key and the super key brought it up automatically. So quick access to something, you can just hit super and then just type in something to search for. And this looks like a partitioning app, probably, if I remember right. Yeah, Bleuvet GUI version. Nice. Front end for Bleuvet, and beautiful partitioning software. If you don't know what you're doing, though, I would stay the heck out of that. You might trash all the stuff on your drive. So here's our Budgie Control Center. Nice. Budgie Control. Looks like where all the magic happens. So there's nightlight settings. If you like the nightlight, you can turn that on, and it'll automatically activate between sunset and sunrise. Nice to see, and you can warm up your color temperature. Then we have our network settings here, currently wired, no Bluetooth on this setup. So not a whole lot of background pictures, but you can add your own pictures. If you're like me and you just have a whole bunch of desktop backgrounds in a folder, they make it super easy to get to your folder. So that's really cool. And then when you click on it, it automatically changes your background when you select it. So I like that. That's a lot of water. And then we got this nice dark one. That actually looks kind of cool. That would work for me, even on a dark theme. And that one's got a lot of lines, so that's a little too busy for me, I think. And then our default. And I kind of like the default. I think that's the best of the pick of the bunch, so I'm going to stick with that. And then here's our notification settings. So just like in your iPhone or smartphone, you can kind of turn on and off notifications for different apps. And then our multitasking settings, so you can set it up to show stuff in your multitask, which I think is Alt-Tab. And your active screen edge, so if you drag this over, it'll pop it up and then it'll tile that window. And so if you want to do another window and slide it over to the right, that's not the right, think Jack. Go to the right and it'll tile it with this. So here you kind of got tiling features similar to a tiling window manager, except it's really still floating, but you're just kind of switching to toggle. So when I move this out, it's floating again. So you can automatically pop between a toggled mode and floating just by hitting those screen edges. So very cool. And then these are a bunch of different app settings that you can tweak. So back here under privacy, looks like they got all the settings turned off by default, which is nice. Location is off, the Thunderbolt, and file history and trash. So if you want to turn off your file history, here's the place to do it if you don't like your file history being there. And then automatic delete your trash content, and even a automatic delete period. Nice for trash. Very cool. And even problem reporting was turned off. So that's good. I like those defaults. Then here's our online account. So if you're like really big into having online accounts like Google and Nextcloud, Microsoft, Flickr, and all that other good stuff, this is a place where you can kind of set them up. And then our sharing settings, which is another good thing to have. So if you want to share your files on a network and you have a home network or you're in a network situation, you can turn it on there. Easy peasy. Screen sharing, media sharing, nice. So people can tie in, and your remote login, if you want to be able to log into this computer remotely, you can turn it on there. And then here's our sound settings. So we got our system volume and volume levels and output, and all that other good stuff is all right here in a nice easy layout. Then we have our power settings, which balance is a great default. You can screen your blanker screen is 5 minutes on the default. However, you can change it right here. And usually I go between never and something like an hour. And then here's our display settings. And again, your blank screen delay and so forth, and your scale, which I wouldn't mess with the scale unless you really need to. And here we have our mouse settings. If you're left-handed, then you can select the right for your primary button, and then mouse spread, natural scrolling, which is a nice feature. If you want to change your avatar, you can do that, and then change your password and so forth. Nice. And here you click your avatar or put in your own custom. But I think I'll just take the hummingbird there. I think that looks kind of cool. Then your default applications, of course, and then date and time settings. So these are additional date and time settings. Of course, we changed our settings, but here you can also do some additional things. So I just had to unlock it there. And if you click on that, then it'll open this up, and you can kind of change 24-hour time and so forth. You can change your time zone here. Some properties here, how much memory we're running, graphics, processor, and our Budgie version, which is 10.5.3, running on a 64-bit. Ultramarine Linux 36, because it's based on Fedora 36, and Gnome 42. All right, so here under all, we got all this stuff. Wow. I just opened up this calculator because it looks kind of interesting. Wow, we got basic, advanced, a whole bunch of different ones. So if you're a real scientist, you can have it in advanced or financial. I like that too. Wow, check that out. Calculate rates and terms and all kinds of great stuff. And then a programming calculator for us programmers. Nice. And here we can calculate in decimal, binary, octal, and heck, cool. That's very cool. And it's all right there. Doesn't get much cooler than that. And then keyboard. So I guess you can, like, not really quite sure what that is, but kind of looks like it's related to geometrics, mass, duration, frequency, temperature, or actually beyond all that. Currency. I guess that's if you use your keypad, maybe. And then these are just kind of everything laid out. You got gedit as your default editor. Very cool. Oh, looks like our updater's launching there. Maybe I hit that by mistake. I don't know. But anyways, hi there, updaters. Since you popped up, let's come over and take a look. So it wants to do an update on these system updates, so I'm just going to hit download and let it download. And I'll just kind of let it do its thing, and then it'll probably need a restart. Yeah, it says requires restart up here. And here we got accessories, and we got window shuffler, Wallstreet control. What's that? Wallstreet. Oh, that's like some kind of, probably a wallpaper software. Okay, I thought it was something related to stock. Okay, so use default wallpapers. Well, let's just hit run and see what happens. Probably going to cycle through the, oh, that's a different wallpaper. Wow, let me close that for a second. Minimize, minimize. Wow, a different wallpaper. That's cool. So I guess we do have more wallpapers available through Wallstreet. So this must be kind of like Variety, except a different app, probably more updated. That's kind of cool. Yeah, I'm not familiar with that at all, but if we turn that off, then I guess you can select your own wallpaper directory if you want to just kind of customize it too. But I like the fact that the default wallpapers are different in here. So I'm assuming this probably is going to kind of change through those at different interviews and intervals, but nice wallpaper. I'm going to go with it. And then we got a weather app, which is probably like the Gnome weather app. I'm assuming different than what's in the applet. Yeah, that's Gnome weather, which I've never really had much luck with it. This one down here in the bottom panel is far better, right? I'm going to restart this because the update completed, so that's nice. And so I'll just pause for a second and I'll be right back right after the update. And I see we're running 5.17 kernel. That's cool. And got a new wallpaper in the background on the login as well. There we are, we're back. And that says, oh, connection established. Okay, as if I couldn't see it. Okay, so in our menu over here, we got our accessories there, education, graphics, we got photo and LibreOffice Draw, Firefox under internet. So somewhat minimal, which is nice. That gives us lots of room. Our office suite is LibreOffice, and then our calendar, and wow, that's a great looking calendar. I love it. Kind of reminds me of the Cinnamon calendar. There's our weekly and our yearly view. Cool. And of course our monthly. That is great. I like this. So if we click on this, we can like add an event. And so there I am in the way again. So like we could give this a name for this event and just add event in the calendar like Fred's Bank Holiday. How about Fred's Bank Holiday. And then let's edit the details. And then we can add more stuff like the location. I guess it would be at Fred's Bank. Nice. And then of course you can do additional settings. You can put a reminder in here if you want to be reminded before the event. So a lot of different presets, which is pretty nice. 30 minutes, a day, 2 days, so forth. So that's nice. Now we have it over here in the corner, and there's Fred's Bank, and hovering over it, it gives us some more details and the date and so forth. And you can even add the time in there if you wish. So that's nice. Like that. And that's how you can edit it if you need to change something later. Cool. And then here you can kind of scroll through the months: August, July, June, May, which is now May. So that's great. That's our calendar. I like the calendar. Beautiful. And then under other, we got our Budgie Control Center, which is where we were before, and the firewall and all that good stuff. And then our GTK Light DM settings for our greeter. And just jumping in here, I just want to make sure, yeah, that's where we were before. Okay. Budgie Control Center. And then under sound and video, we got Cheese, which is a nice app, videos and sound recorder. And then our system tools, desktop settings, HTOP. Cool. Let's open that up. Kind of take a look at our settings. Nice. So we're looking at about 984 megs of RAM. So not too bad, especially in this environment where you have all this fancy stuff. Not bad. So I like that. It's still a lot better than the typical Gnome resource usage there. So I'm liking that. Then we have our software center here. So if I click on that, software catalog is being downloaded. So it's populating right now with the metadata. And there we go. So now it's kind of, that didn't take long at all, actually. And then here's our updates. Looks like it's got more updates already. Wow. And then these are our apps. So this is the Gnome Software Center, which is pretty nice. They fairly recently got a new look, an updated look here. So the categories are kind of different now compared to like a year ago. And then our software repos. So in here, you can kind of see what's already activated, like our Flatpak repo and FlatHub is turned on. So I like that by default. Then our Fedora repos, and you can easily, conveniently toggle them on and off. And there's our RPM Fusion, which is pre-installed and toggled on, which is fantastic. I really like the fact that that's in there. Don't really quite understand why Fedora doesn't do that by default. Maybe they just got some kind of legal reason for that because of codecs, but then we got our firmware settings. So great, that is nice. Software Center, and then these are our update preferences, which I would just kind of leave at their default. Automatic updates and notifications on updates. And then about, so we're running 42.1 on the Software Center, right, consistent with GNOME 42. And then here's our search. So if you want to search for an app like VLC Player, there it is, because we have our RPM Fusion. So that's cool. So when we come down here, we got our description, nice pictures there to look at, kind of get a feel for the app, and then the size and so forth. And you can see up here, it's downloading directly from the RPM Fusion, but you also got a choice of a Flatpak. But I would just stay with the RPM Fusion because RPMs are quite up to date anyway. And a little less space. Flatpaks are kind of bulky because they're kind of putting everything into a pack. I love Flatpaks, but sometimes I'd rather just save the space if I have the same version. So that installed, let's go ahead and hit open, because we can open it right from here. And looks like it all went well. Then I can just kind of clear that out. Actually, just hitting escape, I think. Or, no wait, pressing the search, I think will do it. There we go. So clicking search, that takes us back. And then we can hit this X button and it'll close. Okay, so system tools. And then we got our utilities. A lot of these we kind of saw already in the all categories there. Image viewer, the nice. Password manager. Then our disk utility, that's pretty cool. That kind of reminds me of the Windows one, but this is probably way better. And then our CDD. Our CD and DVD. But this is cool. You can see your different partitions. It gives you information on your different partitions. So very nice. And again, if you're not really sure what you're doing when it comes to partitioning or setting disks and stuff like that, probably wouldn't want to mess with that too much. Although I think that one is probably a lot safer than like Gparted for novices. Then we have a password manager here, and you can manage your key rings and all that if you need to. Typically stuff you wouldn't ever have to bother with. Then our screenshot utility, system monitor, and pretty nice system monitor outfit. Those are all your processes. Then we have resources here, and so that'll just kind of give you a running ticker of how that's going. And then we got our file systems, and so information on all your different partitions and file systems there. So very cool. And then processes. You need to kill a process. That's where you can do it. Select it and right click, hit terminate or kill, and it'll get rid of the rogue app. And then here's our terminal. Yeah, I haven't been in here yet. So I believe it's using Gnome terminal, and kernel is 5.17.7. So yes, it's probably the latest, greatest stable kernel there. So that was uname-r. That'll get you your kernel info. So good to see. And now let's do an install from the terminal. So let's install Inkscape. I'm doing this because installing from the terminal is really a good thing to know, and if you're not familiar with it, then it's a good thing to see. So DNF is the package manager in Fedora and Fedora-based distros. So you have sudo DNF and then IN as an abbreviation for install. You can actually spell that out all together and just have DNF install spelled out, and then your app name. And to remove it, you would just type in the same line except remove. So sudo DNF remove Inkscape will get rid of it. And if you're looking to see if it's available in the repositories, you can do a sudo DNF search Inkscape, and then it'll tell you if it exists or not in the repos. So yes, and if you're a GUI person, if you try doing this in the terminal a few times, you'll probably find out that it's a heck of a lot quicker to install something this way. And you might just find yourself jumping into that terminal to install something a lot more often than going out and opening the GUI. So that's kind of cool. So I'm going to hit yes here because it found all the stuff. It was kind of populating the DNF config there, updating the mirrors and so forth, I think. So it took a while to get to this state here, but that's kind of a one-time thing. Once your stuff is updated, just like in your GUI, the next time I go to download, install some software, then it'll just be way quicker. So installing everything here for Inkscape, and it looks like the newest version, I think that's 1.2 actually. Wow. So that's a newer version than even I have noticed. And I'm running Arch. Fascinating. So if I go up here in the menu, there is Inkscape under graphics category. So if I hit that, it should open up Inkscape. Yeah, I think the version I'm running, which I thought was the latest, was 1.1.2, but this is actually 1.2. So very cool. And those are our different canvases, but I'm going to stay with the default and then done. Then here we can select some different templates, which is nice. Screen templates there, video. I usually do the video and I like 720p, like when I do thumbnails and so forth. So here we go. And yeah, it looks great. The layout is very clean and easy to see. And there it is. Yeah, Inkscape 1.2. Wow, very cool. I'm not quite sure why I'm still on 1.1.2 when this is out. I guess I'll have to double check the Arch repositories there. I must have missed out on that. So that's cool. Beautiful. Inkscape is looking great. It's absolutely one of my favorite graphic apps. I create all kinds of stuff in Inkscape. I think it's really a fantastic application. So close the terminal there and wow, that's the only word I can think of. This is fantastic. It makes me want to do Fedora again. You know, I like Fedora. I think it's really a great desktop, but it's got kind of things that just bug me. I'm not a Gnome person, so I don't really like the Gnome shell that much. Even though it's getting a lot better over the years, the lack of choice is still kind of sticks in my craw a little, and their unfriendliness towards extensions and so forth. However, this Budgie edition here of Fedora is really cool to me, and you've probably heard this before from around the net, but this is the way Gnome should have been done. The Budgie people really got it right, I think. I love it. I think the concept of the Raven menu over on the right is fantastic. It's very clean looking. You got your choice of icons on the desktop or no icons, and a lot of flexibility here. The theming is beautiful. This is something you can just install on somebody's computer or your own, and it just works. I can tell just by looking at it. Everything just works. I had no issues with anything when I installed it. Networking is working perfectly and so forth. The bottom panel applets are easy to configure, and it's really just a pleasant experience. And Ultramarine, I really love the touch that they did. They just like took Fedora to the next level. A minute ago I was saying that Gnome, that Budgie is kind of set up the way Gnome should be, or designed, I guess. And I guess I could say the same with Fedora and Ultramarine. You know, to me, Ultramarine is kind of like the way Fedora should have set their stuff up to look. And so I think this fills in a real niche for people that love Fedora, but they want something prepackaged that's already kind of at that next level, so they don't have to do these boilerplate steps after installing. You know, you see lots of videos out there and so forth, and blog posts that say 5 things you should do right after installing Fedora, or 10 things you should do after installing Fedora. And really with any distro, I see that with Manjaro too. 10 things you should do after installing Manjaro. So those to me are kind of like red flags. When you have articles out there that say things you should do after installing X desktop, X distro, then that makes me go, okay, why do you have to do those? That means there's a shortcoming that needs to be overcome. And so these guys kind of took the initiative and filled in those shortcomings and turned it into a distro. I think that's fantastic. And Ultramarine is really a wonderful discovery. I'm glad I found this. What a treasure. This is something absolutely I would recommend. And if you want to try it, stick it in a VM or put it on a spare computer, and you might just find yourself saying, I gotta use this as my daily driver. And so you just might, and I don't think you'll go wrong. And Fedora-based distros, the thing I like about them, of course, is that you get access to the latest and greatest, but at the same time, you got the stability of Fedora. So it's kind of like the best of both worlds, because when you're on Ubuntu and Debian, things are usually lagging a little bit behind, but you get stability. And on Arch, you get the cutting edge, latest and greatest, but you're sacrificing stability. So you're kind of give and take on both. But Fedora kind of seems to be right in that sweet spot. RPM distros, especially Fedora or like OpenSUSE, another example. They're kind of in that sweet spot where you can be right on the cutting edge, maybe not always bleeding edge, but quite cutting and bleeding if you choose. But at the same time, you still have that Debian-like stability. And to me, that's a wonderful combination. And Budgie is a desktop that's really worth taking note of. Might be one of the best desktops out there. Even though I'm really an XFCE guy, Budgie is something I could really love and would be just as happy, I think, running Budgie as XFCE. So Budgie definitely would be on my list for one of my coolest desktops, absolutely. And with that, that should cover the review, and I hope it was helpful. And if it was, don't forget to leave that thumbs up and hit subscribe. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.